So welcome. Thanks for coming. This is we're going to discuss some student-generated video on campus. I'm Paul Rees-Mandel, and I work at Northwestern University. I'm the Director of Curriculum Support for the School of Communication, and I work in educational technology, but with a real emphasis on video and collaboration technology. And day-to-day I work relatively closely with faculty to help make technology meet their needs and help advise them on how technology works with their different learning strategies. I'm also the contributing editor for education at Streaming Media Magazine. I write the column Class Act, which is the education column that appears just about every issue. Scott Nabzan was going to be with me. He works with Ensemble Video, which is an online video platform that is specifically targeted at education. Unfortunately, he's based out of Syracuse, and there was no way he could get a plane here in any sort of safe way. So unfortunately, he won't be able to join us. But Scott was able to share with me some of the things that he wanted to talk with, and I've been able to integrate it here into this conversation. Since there's a relatively small number of us here, I'm actually kind of interested in knowing a little bit about each of you, since we have that ability, and I can just talk back a little bit so it gets on recording. But if you wouldn't mind telling me, your name, where you're coming from, and what motivated you to come to this particular panel. We'll just start right here in front. Okay, so we have someone who is a faculty member at Santa Clara University. I'll bring around the mic there since we can pass it around. Interested in ways to engage students. Hearing that video helps to engage. There we go. Thank you.
I'm Grant Ramsey from Eastern Washington University in Washington State. I run the Streaming Media Services and administer iTunes U, and I've been actually handling student contributions for quite some time. But we're recently going into a media management system, and we're considering letting the students have their own space.
Okay, what's the media management system? Have you picked something?
We've been running the Helix streaming services since '98.
Right.
And it's their Helix Media Library.
Okay, great.
With their Active Directory plugins.
My name's Andrew Silk, and I've got a video production company called Televisual Stories, and I'm also a finalist for a full-time video producer position at Pitzer College over in Claremont.
Okay, great.
My name is Luke Hale. I'm here with Brigham Young University, Idaho, and we have student-generated content creeping into all of our courses, and we haven't controlled it in any way, so we're just interested in providing tools for our students to do some of these things.
Hi, I'm Richard Balanitza. I manage IT services at York University. We recently launched a streaming media service with Kaltura, university-wide, kind of like the YouTube experience, and just curious to hear how students are using it at Northwestern.
I'm Todd Stabley, and we met this morning on the lecture capture panel. I'm IT staff at Duke, and we're definitely interested in the topic of student-generated video. We also are evaluating products like Kaltura and kind of looking for a platform that students can use to publish and upload files in there. And it's something that they're doing on their own already, and maybe IT and education hasn't really found ways to reach out directly to them, so I'm kind of interested to hear what folks have to say.
Okay, great. Maybe if you wouldn't mind handing over the mic to the other side of the room. Since we've got kind of a small group, I've been asking folks to kind of introduce themselves and maybe tell a little bit about what brought you to this panel, what you're interested in learning.
Oh, okay. I'm Janet Sutherland. I'm with a company called Capture the Market out of Dallas. We do online video for the apartment industry, and we have a ton of clients who are that deal in student housing specifically, so I just thought I would come and see what that was about.
Okay, great.
Sorry to be an outlier. Harold Hendricks, Brigham Young University Provo. I supervise the Humanities Learner Resource Center and deal with our media labs and center, and also student produced media. We're just here to see hopefully the ideas that you have.
Okay, great. So what I want to go through here is things not just that are happening in Northwestern, but that are happening in a number of different spheres. So you get a kind of an overview of different ways which video is being used right now to really enhance learning. I think what's important in framing student-generated video is that it's more than YouTube. I think what happens is people get the picture in their mind of, well, we create the campus YouTube, which I think is a fine idea, but you need to really provide some structure to that. If it's just people uploading video, as we know with YouTube, there's a lot of chaff to your wheat. And so with student-generated video, it's figuring out what is its role. And primarily we're talking about, instruction. But we're also, in a lot of ways, talking about co-curricular and extracurricular as well, things that go alongside students' regular curricular coursework and helps to enhance their overall experience, especially in higher education, but also true in K through 12. I'm just giving you, a really simple working definition. It's the one I use, but I do think it helps to frame. Is that we're talking about video created by students or capturing student performance for the purpose of enhancing learning and evaluation. And I think that those are two very good, different sides to this that I'll try to go through. So when we talk about student-created video, we're often talking about, in kind of two different ways. One is in a curricular project. This is video assignments. This is part of homework. This is part of an in-class experience. This is part of what you do for class. And we talk about co-curricular video, we're talking about things that might be activities and clubs. And I think that's often part that we forget about, is that, especially on a college campus, but on many, many high school campuses and even primary school campuses, their activities are clubs. The students are busy and engaged in making video and sharing it. And they're probably sharing it now whether you know it or not. And it may be a case in which your institution can make better use of right underneath your nose. So some interesting curricular projects I've seen are out there that seems to have done a lot is at Dartmouth University, where in fact they've put together a whole website trying to catalog different approaches to using video in the classroom and have students create video in the classroom. And it's a really nice site, which I'll go to real quick here. That's the case, maybe. The link. And what I like about it is that it cuts across all different sorts of disciplines and areas, from various humanities to the social sciences, the foreign languages, and including things like writing, which I think is very important, because when we start talking about video in the classroom, we talk about student-generated video. What we're talking about in a lot of ways is students creating something this way instead of or in supplement to writing, which has been one of the most common ways for students to create assignments, right? And in a lot of ways, it's a parallel to the time in memoriam of the book report, the oral report, right? Giving a presentation in class. But of course, it takes those two elements and fuses them together. It gives students an opportunity to both write and to create narrative in a different way and to appear there themselves. And what you'll see in a lot of these assignments here is that there's a lot of this idea of students making video like they write a term paper. And if you think about a term paper, what is one of the biggest things that goes into it? Right? There's research, right? You quote, you build new arguments from existing arguments, right? There's synthesis. And you'll see that a lot of folks have taken the approach of doing what they're calling a mashup, right? That's kind of what we use now in parlance to basically say, to quote in video. And so you see a lot of projects here, such as this one, which was for the sociology class,
Is a beehive your idea of a perfect society? There's a guaranteed job, a safe life, and a set
So it's a
of
student
privacy,
voiceover.
not to mention efficient traffic. Or do you feel that there's something lacking in such a rigid, mechanical culture? Questions like these harken back to the original goal of sociology, perfecting human society.
So this is about looking at the notions of utopia. And so a student looking at an existing text here, which is, this is a bee's life, and using that as a way to formulate an argument using video. So what we see here is in this kind of example, is the ability to even surpass a little bit the questions that we often get bogged down in, which is, do we have the equipment to do it? Do we need to have cameras? Do we need to go through lots of training? Do students have to, basically have to have, video production training in addition to the normal training of being in a sociology class? And the answer is maybe not necessarily, right? That's certainly one approach to it. And another approach I had experience with myself, I used to be at the University of Illinois, where they have this ongoing program called Writing with Video. And it's been a collaboration between the College of Fine and Applied Arts and the English department in their writing center. And this whole approach is taking it a bit step further, the idea that students can do creative writing but video, but really thinking about it in the same way. And part of that approach, right, is to get students to think about it as something that they're constructing, both an argument and a narrative. In a lot of ways, those of us who maybe produce video, we get that. We're used to working with scripts. We're used to working with storyboards. But a lot of times I think students, they go running into video and just start shooting, and then they try and put something together. And so this is sort of trying to give these students an approach to using video and creating arguments in this new medium. We'll go over there. They also have a website. Which is pretty nice and gives them some of their projects here. Taking a little while to load, isn't it? We're all having fun with the Wi-Fi today. And so these are student projects, and these are all undergraduates, and they run, half a minute, 2 minutes. And these students were all provided with camcorders. They all used iMovie, so they all were loaned or given use of equipment for at least this semester. But in terms of how the training and learning production, this is all done in class. So they get maybe a class session's worth of training, because the point here is they're not trying to turn them into world-class producers and directors. What we're trying to do is simply make them able to use the medium. And if you think about it with writing, it's the same way. In a lot of cases, in a lot of classes, you're not hoping for and you don't expect students to be able to be turning out doctoral theses or turning out world-class fiction, right? What you want them to do is to become competent and be able to convey their ideas. And the Wi-Fi wins again, but trying to give you a little sense of what they're creating here in this particular class. But I may not give you. There we go. This is a video a student shot himself. All done, using iMovie, using fairly approachable, easy-to-use tools. And this has been done as well in the K through 12 space. And there's a paper which is turned out to be one of the first papers really in this area in terms of looking at the uses of video in the classroom. And there's this notion that if people have heard called authentic learning. And it's often thought of in language learning and is used a lot in research, especially around secondary primary education. But it's the idea that we help students learn by really involving them in real world contexts, right? And so taking them a bit more out of it all being abstract, it being a book, and they're learning, and they sit in a classroom and they learn things, but putting them into the context in which they're doing, and they're interacting in circumstances, especially circumstances which are authentic to their lives. Done quite a bit in foreign language learning, where you maybe have students act out interactions and things that are similar to what they might do in their everyday life, so they begin to understand what it would be like to live and work in a different language. But in this particular study by Matthew Kearney and Sandy Shuck, they went through and studied a whole assortment of different disciplines that they're working in digital video, and having students make videos themselves. The text is a little small up there, I realize, but things that students making videos in French to send to a sister school that's actually in France. Or students who formed a news team to report school news and present a weekly web-based newsletter. Or children in video use to develop metacognitive skills. I'm sorry, I don't know what that means. Or students making advertisements. But really, you can see even being done at the K through 12 level, involving students in constructing and making. And using video, because they can perform and have that captured. And as well, they can see it themselves and they can share. And what they found in this study is that there seemed to be an increase in engagement, that students seem to react positively to this. And, there seemed to be, they hope, an enhancement of learning. As at this moment, I've done some research into this. There haven't been wide-scale studies, strict studies that go across a lot of disciplines, and there hasn't been a lot of meta-studies, because frankly, there just hasn't been enough done. It seems like there's a lot of people out there doing this in a lot of different places. But what's yet to happen, and anyone who teaches regularly can understand, the time to take a step back and run all the necessary analytics to do the study itself, to do the statistics, and to make it worthy of a peer-reviewed journal is a whole other step. So in a lot of ways, these things are going on, and they're probably going on in a lot of your institutions, and you're probably not even aware of it. And then you have also things that seem very common, and you'd think, is definitely the ability to have your film students submit their projects. And this is something which Scott, who is going to be here with me, he submitted because he's worked with different universities like Temple University and National University, Syracuse University, a number of community colleges, helping them set up Dropboxes. And this is, it's very simple, but yet think about how simple this makes everyone's life, that a student can create their video assignment, and then be able to Dropbox it into their faculty member and turn it in that way. And the faculty member then is able to review. No shuffling CDs, DVDs, thumb drives, et cetera, back and forth. And that's probably something that many of you who are looking at video platforms or have them want to make sure you have the ability to do. And as I mentioned before, co-curricular projects are pretty important too. There are student TV stations all over the place. Orange TV is at Syracuse University. The Channel 99 there is at a Carmel High School in California. Studio 22 is a student production company at Northwestern University. And these are all opportunities where students are going out and making video. And in a lot of cases, with these co-curricular opportunities, they're learning from each other in as much or more so than they are learning from mentors, from faculty mentors. And there's really good skill sharing. But what you have there is the opportunity for students to develop these skills outside the classroom, which they can then also implement within the classroom. I know that at Northwestern, the students I've talked to who've been involved in the student film production company say that was absolutely critical to their education, to them developing, having time to apply all these skills that they're getting in the classroom in projects and in longer forms or in different forms than they just do in the classroom. But that's a very important aspect, I think, of student-generated video. And of course, for all of these, when you make it a TV station, embedded in that is, of course, that other people will watch it. You will make it available to other people, and you can share it. So the other side, then, we talked a bit about student-generated video that the students are making. The other side of that is using video for capturing and evaluating student performance. And that can be something where the student, him or herself, or in groups, are responsible for going out and capturing the video. Or it can be situations in which you can use lecture capture technology, or you can use different capture devices. But the idea is that the students aren't so much engaged in creating a narrative or creating a video, so much as they're using it as a tool to help them and faculty evaluate how they perform in a number of different arenas. So public speaking and presenting is something that I've been involved with at Northwestern. We have all the public speaking classes are taught out of the School of Communication where I work. And so we have one room which has a camera. It used to be that it went right to a VHS VCR, and they tried to work out distributing VHS tapes to everybody. And now we're able to ingest it into our video platform and give access to the students class by class and to their teachers to view it. Now, of course, the teachers themselves are in the classroom during the actual presentations, run 3 to 5 minutes. But they've told me that they come back and being able to go back and review what happened to see if what they caught everything or if there were nuances they missed has been invaluable, and I'm giving much better feedback to the students. And of course, everyone loves watching themselves present a speech on video, right? But it's an incredibly educational experience for the students because they get an opportunity to see themselves and understand what it was like to be an audience. So if they get that teacher feedback that says, well, you know, you had your hands in the pocket all the time, or, you know, you need to sit still, you can't move so quickly, or you need to make eye contact. They can go look at the video and go, oh, because sometimes you go, what do you mean? I wasn't doing that. Well, you look at the video and you get to see what happened. And then there's peer review. A part of that learning experience is becoming critical, right, and looking at things objectively. And so sometimes you look at your own performance objectively. When you have to look at someone else's performance objectively, you get tuned in and you get to see things differently. Similar for foreign language learning, students seeing themselves talking in a language or trying to construct skits or trying to construct different sorts of plays can work very well. I also work in a graduate program where they do this for leadership activities, where they break into small groups for the entirety of a quarter and have to videotape themselves in decision-making exercises. It's a leadership course. And of course, then they're asked to analyze how did they do, and not just as a group, but how did I do within the group? Who spoke the most? How did did someone dominate the proceedings? How did they dominate the proceedings? What roles did people play? Did somebody try to become the facilitator and move things along? Was somebody obstructionist? And then, of course, they trade off. One group looks at somebody else's and does the same analysis. Again, getting better sense for how you perform in all these different ways. Teacher training is very common. Does anyone here work in a school or college of education or finished a degree? Yeah, so your wife works, and they probably use video to teacher evaluation, don't they?
First grade.
First grade.
Parents want to, so they can gossip and critique. Because
Okay.
they're professionals and have degrees in teaching. But,
So this is happening in the school itself.
well, I'm being tongue-in-cheek.
Yeah.
The parents want to
I see.
record, but they have other agendas. The teachers are against it, even though it would be helpful because it would get into the wrong things.
Okay, so you're talking about in the schools. I know that to get accredited, to get your certification in many states, you have to put together an actual portfolio, which includes your teaching, right? Which includes video of you doing exercises of whatever different sorts of teaching elements that you've delivered. And that often has to go all the way into your portfolio, but at the very least it's often evaluated by other faculty, and again, there's peer evaluation. And sort of any sort of skills performance. Video fills in very, very well because it's easy to miss things on site. Also, of course, it allows an instructor to be in many places at one time because these different instances that are being evaluated can be recorded in a lot of different ways and allows for review and self-evaluation. It's an example which Scott shared with me. He's worked with the St. John Fisher School of Pharmacy where they're teaching pharmacists. And so they're all required to record clinical interaction with patients. So how does someone react? How is their body language? Did they take time? Did they seem cold or did they seem caring? Towards educating better pharmacists. And for them, they're able to ingest and bring it into Blackboard so that that's accessible through their learning management system. So these are a bunch of different ways in which video can come in, and it really it's student generated. It's the students are either the author or the source there that can be used to help bring in new elements to education, to enhance it, and to give new ways for faculty to evaluate students. And the nice thing about it really is, on the one hand, it's not too hard to get started. Increasingly, the tools are there already. So even if you have difficulty laying your hands on camcorders, you find students already have camcorders in their pocket, right? They already have smartphones. These are things that you can find ways to use. Using iMovie or even getting folks into different flavors of Premiere is fine. And what we're finding is there are more and more online tools that are available, and lots of video platforms and other sorts of media management platforms if your school goes that way. In addition to simply being able to capture with your laptop and webcam. Right? You don't have to get too pedantic, and you don't have to get too overarching of whether or not we have to turn students into expert producers, expert videographers. So much, can we get video of suitable quality in that's useful for our purposes? But management, right, I think is a question I heard come up here. Because, you have student video going up. And if you noticed, all the student examples I showed you were all on YouTube, right? And so in a lot of ways, that's accessible to all of us. And it's great because it's cheap or free. Things like YouTube, Vimeo, some of them provide at least the ability to, I think Vimeo you can password protect, YouTube you can hide a video so it isn't necessarily public. But on the con side, yeah, it's difficult to manage. So if you're talking about students, creating videos that they're willing to share, that's great. But if you're talking about evaluating student performance in a public speaking session, maybe not so great. I know that when we introduced the online videos to the public speaking curriculum at Northwestern, the biggest question I got from the faculty was, well, can they share this? Right? Because what we don't want to see happen, what we're worried about seeing happen, is that some joker is going to take it and make a mashup, or and share it, and it's going to become, something that gets passed around virally to make fun of somebody, or even if something is done with more good-natured, that doesn't turn around and bite you. So, can you have security that's for real? Again, for some sorts of things, maybe not so important, but when we talk about students being graded, things that is really about their performance in class, it's important that you want to hang on to that. Not all of it should be in the public cloud. So increasingly, schools are moving towards online video platforms. And that's good because nearly all of them allow you to manage permissions and access. Right? Who can see what and how? And usually have some provisions to make it so you can determine this can be downloaded, this can't be downloaded. And we all know that there are some clever students who can figure out how to rip any video out there. But by and large, if you're not going to make it a right-click save as, you've probably gone pretty far. And a lot of them now are putting in content creation tools. A lot of them now allow you to record screencasts, allow you to record right from the webcam, right into the platform. And that's really nice because it takes out that equipment question. Because if you let's say if you just have a lab environment, students could create video right in that lab environment without having to own their own machines. Submission drop boxes are really nice as well. So the idea that they can just simply upload video to a folder and it goes into the hand of the faculty who can manage it. And the last one is I think very important, reports and analytics. Who's participating? How are they participating? If the assignment was for students to watch each other's videos, well, did they do it? Did they participate? It gives you a feedback loop as well, what's working, what's not in my class. And of course, the con is once you're into a video management platform, you're no longer free. Right? You need to begin to spend money in that. And there's a whole wide range of cost, but it is something which you have to be able to do. And then there's a little bit extra management. Right? You're into an area where you need to provide services. And a number of you work in IT services or work in video services at your university, so you're used to that. Some of you are faculty or don't work in an IT capacity, and so that probably seems a little more daunting. But I think it's definitely something which isn't so difficult. It's just something you need to keep in mind. And you can use your lecture capture platform for this sort of thing as well. And what we're seeing right now is, as I've drawn these out into two different areas, but increasingly they're not two different areas. Lecture capture platforms and media management platforms, online video platforms, they're kind of merging together. They're kind of becoming, the same thing. You're seeing many more media management capabilities in lecture capture, and you're seeing better lecture capture capabilities in media in OVPs. But the nice thing about a lecture capture platform is, look, you have capture appliances or you have simplified recording. And in many universities and colleges and schools, often you have classrooms or rooms dedicated to this. So with a little bit of smart managing, you can create a lot of video very quickly. As we do for our public speaking class, we have one room. All the public speaking classes are scheduled in there. So it's just a simple matter of the teacher being able to go in and click record, click record, click record, click record. And then we have all the video and we're able to distribute it. You also, so you have that smart classroom integration, permissions and access, reports and analytics. Again, you do have cost. You have to do a little bit of additional management. So you do have to pay a little bit more attention to it. But of course, it allows you to get much more out of your video. Because, if you're simply putting it up in YouTube and Vimeo, you have the problems of that. iTunes U helps you a little bit. But I know that Apple only wants to give you so much storage space, and you're constantly having to manage that. And again, it's been a while since I've had to manage iTunes U, but as I recall, there's not really fine-grained permissions in terms of I can say this class can see something and this class can't. Am I correct that?
You can do that.
You can isolate, okay. Yeah, but you still kind of run into storage issues, don't you? 500 gig limit, right, which seemed like a lot 5 years ago and increasingly isn't so much. So again, lecture capture platforms can be a really great way to manage this video on the back end. And increasingly, learning management systems are handling video, or there are plugins to handle video. Certainly the major online video platforms, many of them have plugins to say Blackboard Learn. And then there are newer ones coming online, like LoudCloud is one that I'm aware of that has video capabilities built in. So there could give you ways to manage your video there. Although it seems like making a good investment in an actual platform is probably the way to go if you want to use it. So I'm going to give you some references, but I'm interested in hearing from you any questions or comments. And as for me or if anyone else in the room has some experiences to share. I can make them available. Sure. So, yeah.
Do you mind sharing what lecture capture and platform tools you're using?
Yeah, we use MediaSite.
Do you self-host that, or do you?
We do self-host, yeah. That we brought in MediaSite almost 8 years ago, before I was even at Northwestern. So we have sort of a investment already in the platform. We've continued to be able to use it. And MediaSite is one of those lecture capture platforms that's brought in some media management capabilities, so we can ingest some video using it that didn't originate one of their appliances. Back at University of Illinois, I had the opportunity to use Ensemble Video. It was one I've had experience with. I've also had experience with Kaltura, and as well with the Viewcast media platform, which is now owned by Genus as well. So the one we have in most production is MediaSite.
Maybe a question for you and then the room generally. Just wondering how people are managing policy around student-generated video.
Mm-hmm.
For example, sometimes we have organizations on campus who want to use the school's logo, and then they'll be taking that to unofficial channels. So there's a lot of questions brought up, well, they're branding the university in an inappropriate way or something like that. So
yeah, I can tell you a little bit about both University of Illinois, where I used to work, and at Northwestern. And at University of Illinois, just as I was leaving about 4 years ago, they'd gotten up and running kind of a channel on the main website that included student-contributed video. All of that, of course, was vetted before it went up onto that channel. You can't really control what students do on YouTube, except probably in a disciplinary form. But if it's your channel, you, of course, can vet it, and you can let people know. At Northwestern, all of the student-generated video that we're working with primarily, at least at the level of our school's IT department, it's all behind a password. It's all password protected. It's all authenticated using your campus credentials. So we minimize a lot of that. And we're definitely a little bit more on the side of using it to evaluate student performance than otherwise. But I think that part of that is a lot of policy gets developed at the school level. Though a lot of times universities have that policy, and I think a lot of it depends on where's that video going and who's seeing it. Does anyone else at their campus have some ideas or examples of policies surrounding different video? And I'll tell you, we do, for anything that we think might see public eyes, we either obtain releases or we in a lot of cases, it's university policy that at a school-sponsored event, if you're captured there, you've given permission to be captured, but which isn't really put into things that might be produced by other students. Anyone else have thoughts about that? And it seems to me that a lot of it is about the engagement of faculty, staff, and mentors, and all of that, right? That's and not in a disciplinary way, but definitely in a mentoring sort of way. With regard to student projects, just like with a paper, it's probably a good idea to have students write a proposal first prior to turning in their projects. One, you want to make sure they're going to do something that actually is relevant to the class, that is going to be useful. But two, it gives you that first heads up of whether you might be looking at something that might be inappropriate across any number of vectors, and allow you to stop it before it starts. Any other questions? Any other experiences? Anyone here tell me about anything they've done with students in video? Has anyone done anything? Not yet?
I work in distance learning,
Mm-hmm.
so we generate an enormous amount of video content created for the online classes. And then additionally, we have things like online speech classes where the students are recording themselves.
Oh, great.
And we've done that in so many different ways over the years. The mailing in the mini DVD disc, and the faculty just come to you with this bucket of media, to YouTube, which raised a lot of concerns about what you mentioned of we don't want to put our students in a position where they're sharing these private stories or speeches and presentations and putting that out there publicly. We use Ensemble, so my most recent one, we tried Facebook groups for uploading speeches, and then I also piloted a faculty member that had students use the Dropbox function of Ensemble, which worked really well because it was the least amount of work for him. I put the little plug-in in his Blackboard site, and then as students uploaded video, they would just automatically fill into a button in the course.
And he could just go watch it.
And he could watch it, and then it was sort of trying to move us to not just faculty evaluation, but peer evaluation as well.
Yeah.
Which was a piece when everybody was individually mailing in their content, we were missing. And that's such a huge part of the in-class experience.
Right, and that sort of evaluation, it means you get it can supplement or it can be part of a distance learning. What school are you at? Do you mind telling us?
Washtenaw Community College in Ann Arbor.
Okay, great.
Michigan. And right now I'm at the point where I'm seeing this merge of the lecture capture and the media servers because we have so much more overlap now, and I'm starting to get concerned about the size of the content we're generating, and we're getting a lot of pressure from administration. Can't we just put it on YouTube? And it's not that simple.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's sort of like we're in this speeding train of generating gigabytes after gigabytes of content, and how to
Right, and learn how to, when you retire, things, right?
Yeah, and when, to not break the bank, because we're not taking video down.
Mm-hmm.
It's continually just going up, so.
Right, so that sounds like a great example, and right, allows you in the distance environment to simulate, or in some cases do better with something than you would do in a face-to-face situation. There are many students that thrive in a distance environment because they're shy, they have different learning sorts of approaches, that in a distance environment, in face-to-face they have difficulty, and they may be afraid to be critical, but do much better when they're in that distance environment. And that, again, having, especially the online tools, if you're doing distance or blended, or you have students who are not on site, it's a lot of great opportunities. And you mentioned, the evaluation, the critique. There's another session, I believe it's tomorrow, about annotation. And I think that then the ability for faculty and other folks to annotate videos and provide direct feedback, that is time-based. So it's not just some comments, but it is really synced up well. Any other comments or questions? Yeah.
We had a similar situation with the school of social work, and it reminds me a little bit of writing with video examples that you gave, where typically the instructor would give an assignment, a written assignment to the students on couples therapy, and that was really difficult to capture really how well they were doing in class. In these examples, they were able to use their desktop recorders and capture an interview with the client, upload them to a playlist, and share it with the students within their LMS. It was very successful.
So that was, so you're using that for family counseling, was that right? Yeah, and social work. Yeah, I've heard that used quite a bit. It seems like schools of social work, and more so than a lot of other disciplines, have taken to using video for that and in sharing it for that exact purposes. Anyone else have a question or comment? Yeah.
You brought up something that has been a concern for us. We're looking at bringing Cocurricular on as a solution, but student-generated video expands rapidly and has a lifespan. How do you deal with lifespan? Is this just bulk deletes?
Yeah. So one of the things that we're working on at Northwestern is providing students with an electronic portfolio that would include video and audio and all sorts of things. And so we're actively discussing what is the policy. I'm more on the IT side, so it's not, the policy decisions are not mine. But the discussions I've heard have been something along the lines of maintain for 12 months past graduation. And with the caveat that there may be pieces that you would obtain student permission to retain for the purpose of using it either to show off as examples. And faculty do this all the time. They might get an example of a really great paper and they say to the student, hey, do you mind if I share this in future semesters, because I think it's a great example of what we're trying to do in this class. Same thing you can do with the videos. Increasingly, accreditation. Depending on the discipline, accrediting bodies are wanting to see evidence of student achievement, not just the grades and any other statistics, and video is falling into that depending on what the discipline is, and so being able to retain some of that for those purposes. But otherwise, yeah, it's about that. And so one of the things you want to think about as you look into the platform you choose is, does it allow me to manage lifespan? It's a great question to ask. A lot of things that are more like media asset management and digital asset management tend to support that out of the box, tend to support the ability to say that this object has a lifespan on ingest of 4 years. And then it goes offline, and then maybe it has some kind of review process, and then you can delete, right? Because part of the problem is if you have to stick through student by student and things like that, it can get pretty hairy pretty fast. And of course, you don't want to run the risk of deleting something you don't want. So that lifespan aspect, right, really does matter, because it's not just a matter of storage, right, because you do run out of storage at some point, but it can be a matter of IP and FERPA and things like that you might not have thought about.
I tend to take the view of delete it because the student, if they want it, they still have the original. And if the instructor gives the thumbs up to clear it out at the end of the semester, they're going to do it.
How many faculty hold on to all those student papers? I mean, they're all of them?
They can come back 2 years down the road and be like, wait a minute, you gave me this for
Oh, right. Well, yeah. So you hold on to them because you need to CYA.
Yeah.
Got it. Any other last comments or questions? I think we're about at time here. Well, thank you. Thank you for bearing with me here on the one-man panel and having a nice conversation. Really appreciate it.